I carried on absorbing crystals and was now at rank 4. I had developed a taste for the various kinds of magic crystals available. Not that the crystals themselves literally had different flavors, but there was a difference in the quality of magic between every monster type. The orcs and goblins I'd been killing as of late had a stronger taste compared to the other monsters. Absorbing the crystals of the demonkin was like eating spicy food in my previous life, although the resemblance was vague at best. I'd collected a myriad of different skills and was slowly increasing their levels as well. My raid of the gourmet orc's nest proved to be a delicious venture, both in the skill acquisition and crystal absorption senses. I acquired various weapon skills which included my most frequently used sword mastery and sword arts, both of which were now at level 3. Leveling sword mastery to level 3 really made a difference as I could manipulate my blade, which was really my body, much better, and I was much more efficient at striking the enemy's vital parts as well. I could deflect the attacks of some of the larger monsters too. This really was the most important skill to have if you had a sword for a body. I also acquired a variety of skills from the other monsters, of course. The rock-like stone spider gave me an upgrade of my Poison Fang skill, Advanced Poison Fang. The carnivorous giant mole gave me Heat Sense, and much like a certain Poison Fang rat, the Paralysis Cat didn't give me Paralysis Claws, but it did give me Conceal Presence. On top of that, I got Air Current Sight from the bird-type monsters, a skill which fell under the Sense category, and other stealth skills from the smaller fanged monsters. They were all easy to use and had great utility. I had explored 70% of the grasslands, and it now felt like my backyard.
Take this! Fire arrow!
I was currently fighting some slimes, a creature which was either the weakest or the strongest, depending on the work of fiction it appeared in. It was quite strong in this world, having amazing regenerative capabilities, strong physical defense stats, and being able to conceal itself to mount an ambush. It also had various ways of manipulating its gelatinous body to mount an attack, such as forming tentacles which lashed like whips and shooting out parts of its body like bullets. The slime was made up of multiple layers, including a tough outer layer, an acidic inner layer to digest its prey, and its deepest layer being poisonous so it could better defend its precious crystal. All in all, they were incredibly annoying, especially the acid layer, since I took damage just from touching it. The only way forward was to spam my fire magic. They were quite large, however, with the smallest one being around 1 meter tall, and the biggest being 2 meters. They could take a great deal of punishment from my fire magic. I didn't even know how many fire arrows I'd shot by now. My current plan was to cut open the slimes, fully prepared to take damage in the process, and shoot my fire magic right into the place they stored their crystals. The slimes would sometimes resist by lashing away at me with their tentacles, which was a decent way of fighting back. However, forming tentacles took away from their overall body mass, and in turn made it easier for me to fire my magic at their crystals. In the end, most of my mana went into healing myself, instead of endlessly casting fire magic. Is that all of them? I must have stumbled upon their natural habitat because there were an absurd number of them. With every slime I killed, 2 seemed to spawn out of the ground to take its place. The slimes weren't as strong as the rest of the monsters around here, but there was strength in their numbers. I hear something. I barely had time to catch my breath before I felt the presence of a new monster fast approaching. It might have been attracted to the pile of freshly slaughtered slime. The creature approached me and roared, showing itself to be a giant turtle 3 meters in length. I wasted no time in using Identify on it. Cannon tortoise? I guess that tube must be a cannon. There was a meter-long protrusion sticking out the front of its gigantic shell. That must have been the barrel of the cannon. So what was with the thin piping on the rear end of the shell? It looked like the exhaust pipe of a modified motorcycle. The turtle roared again, and what followed was the high-pitched sound of a vacuum cleaner as it sucked up the air around it. I see, so the pipe's an intake rather than an exhaust. The air current sight I got from the bird monsters allowed me to see the cannon tortoise suck up the wind around it to its rear intake. It then fired an invisible bullet out of its cannon. It would have been impossible to dodge had it not been for my vision. So it shoots out highly compressed air. It wasn't often that I ran into a monster capable of long-distance artillery. Its movement was appropriately lumbering, however. Too slow, but it could only fire 1 shot at a time, and the shots only came from one direction. I quickly flew behind it, but it was very slow in turning to face me. Its shell was sufficiently hard, and I certainly didn't look forward to being plowed under it. I'll just have to kill you before that happens. I flew up and out of the cannon tortoise's field of view. I could see its head as it looked at its surroundings to look for me, so I immediately plunged my blade through its head, killing it instantly. Just as planned. I couldn't bask in the glory of victory for long, however, since the other monsters were now swarming the cannon tortoise's fresh corpse. just as the slime remains had called the cannon tortoise to begin with. Could you at least give me a second? Nature was enacting her law, but I couldn't help but sigh since I was a concerned party for once. The monsters that came along looked pretty strong too. You don't look very friendly. Indeed, I was now face to face with a giant red leopard which stretched 7 to 8 meters in length. The tip of its tail looked like a torch that burned with a red flame. Let's identify you real quick. The monster was called a flare leopard. It had the highest stats of all the monsters I'd encountered so far. Its agility even topped that of the lesser wyverns, coming in at 305. It also came equipped with fire magic, making it a force to be reckoned with at both close and long ranges. You look like trouble, but a creature this strong had to have had equally large crystals. I wondered what its crystal must have tasted like. Only one way to find out. The leopard roared as I thrust myself into battle. 2 days had passed since my fierce fight with the flare leopard. I should get going, specifically to the outer rim of the grasslands, a place I had christened Area 5. As I mentioned earlier, the further I went away from the pedestal, the stronger the monsters became, possibly as a result of the barrier. So I decided to call the immediate area surrounding the pedestal Area 1, as it was populated with goblins and other lower-level monsters. Area 5 was the furthest away from the pedestal, and was therefore populated with the strongest monsters in the grasslands. Beyond Area 5 was unexplored territory. It was where the grasslands ended and the forest started. However, I would sometimes see monsters from Areas 1 and 2 peeking out of the woods of the forest, so it was doubtful the forest was more dangerous than Area 5. I didn't know why the monsters of Area 5 didn't move into the forest, but maybe I'd figure that out once I got there. It doesn't look like there are any trash mobs around. The number of monsters dropped the further out I went into the grasslands. The difficult areas were populated with large monsters who, although not as plentiful, maintained control over vast territories. I was hunting in Area 4 the other day, and I had only managed to take down 20 of such creatures. However, the average crystal drop rate was about 15 per encounter, which meant I had farmed far more crystals out of those 20 than I would have if I had hunted down 100 goblins. Here was my current stat spread. Name: unknown. Race: intelligent weapon, attack 314. MP 1000 over 1000. Durability: 800 over 800. Evolution: rank 5. Crystals: 1366 over 1500. Skill capacity: 34. Free points: 38. Skills: identify 6, attack up small. High speed self-repair, skill sharing, recovery rate plus. Steros plus, telekinesis up small. Telepathy, MP up small. Bestiary mage, skill capacity up small. I used the points I received from my rank up to level up my self-repair into high-speed self-repair, and equipped telekinesis up small. Bestiary and skill capacity up small. I was free to switch up the skills I had in my skill bank, and it wasn't like I could use all the skills I had acquired anyway. In fact, I couldn't even use most of them. Oh, I see a monster. Name: Goblin, race Demon, level 3, HP 10. Magic 2, Strength 7, Agility 8, Skills, Vigilance 1, Poison Resistance 1, Cooking 1. Details: a demon born from a piece of the demon god when it was destroyed 100,000 years ago. Bears deep hatred and resentment toward all non-demon species. While nimble and dexterous, it has a vicious and brutal temper. Being evil by nature, it is recommended to exterminate them as you find them. Crystal location: belly, tailbone. 2 goblins were walking side by side on the borderline between Areas 2 and 3. Although I was able to destroy their base of operations, I still hadn't managed to eradicate them completely. I got some extra details when I used Identify on them this time around, a benefit I most likely owed to investing some points into Bestiary. Who knew it would kick in when I used Identify? It actually made fighting monsters so much easier. It told me of a monster's weak points and where its crystals were, which made it possible for me to kill most of my foes with one strike. Exterminate as you find them. So like cockroaches, they were much more evil than I thought, which made sense from a human standpoint. As a former human, I was on the side of humanity. I was strengthened in my resolve to convert them into quick EXP. Now what about the other one? The other goblin looked slightly different from the first one. Its horns were about 20 centimeters long and were curved at a wicked angle. Its clothing was slightly different too, as it was dyed pitch black. Name: High Goblin. Race: Demon, level 2, HP 38, Magic 21, Strength 26, Agility 19, Skills. Sword Mastery 2, Throwing Weapons 1, Climbing 1, Poison Resistance 1, Title: Slave of the Demon God. Details: unknown. Here was the High Goblin. I had actually run into some at the Goblin Nest before, but I had thought them to be nothing more than just odd-looking goblins at the time. The Goblin King notwithstanding, they were far stronger than any of the normal goblins. The stats this thing had at level 2 were ridiculous, and it even had a title to boot. They were probably the elite fighting force of the goblin race, considering I had often seen them lead a crew of goblins. There were no further details about the High Goblin, and I wondered if I needed to put more points into Identify, or if I needed to kill more of them to get it to unlock. Well, I was told to exterminate any goblins I came across, so it must have held true for the High Goblins as well. EXP was EXP. Still, I was amazed to discover that gods existed in this world. I didn't know whether the gods here were self-proclaimed superhumans or actual gods, but I didn't want to run into them either way. Gods and religions were both annoying to me.
Leave your crystals at the door.
And so I carried on my hunt for monsters. Yee-haw. I came up with a great method of getting around the other day. I would charge up telekinesis and launch myself at great distances. Then I'd let myself fall wherever I would. I called it the telekinetic catapult. It was much more mana efficient, since all I needed to spend was the initial mana it took to cast telekinesis. With this method of transportation, I reached Area 4 sometime before noon. The residents of Area 4 were as strong as I expected. I could no longer one-shot everything I came across, and I took significant damage to my durability whenever the monsters hit me. An attack from a goblin in Area 1 wouldn't even register a decrease in durability, but a direct hit from the monsters here knocked my durability down by at least 100 points. I needed to be careful.